Hello. Vlog for September 27th, 2027, 21. It's about 3:40 in the afternoon. At 4:30 I'm going to go on a bike ride with Mom. Maybe we'll go to Burger King because they're super cheap. I I was working until 5 in the morning this morning. Until I passed out. And then I slept but then I had insomnia until 6. I stopped working because I just got beat. I felt like I was going to fall asleep and I was just tired from working. Then I had insomnia until 6, and then I slept until 12:30. So I think I slept a little bit more, and I had the insomnia because I bought an energy drink yesterday. So excessive sugar and energy drinks aren't good for me. They make me require more sleep, which cuts into my day. Day before yesterday, I bought some alcohol. I got 3 shooters, but I spread out the drinking of them over 6 hours, so I didn't even get a buzz, and it didn't really affect my sleeping or anything. It was more something to do with my hands. But yeah, I was working, figuring out what I wanted the legionary camps to look like through trial and error. And I'm piecing together just little bits and pieces of information in order to guess exactly what Roman history looked like. So in the case of yesterday, I'm figuring out exactly what the Battle of Alesia looked like. Our historical knowledge is spotty. In my opinion, we know as much as what's portrayed on the internet. So if there's nobody out there, if there's no Wikipedia article or anything with detailed information about everything, then that's because nobody knows. So I see myself as being on the tip of the spear, the cutting edge, figuring out exactly what the Roman history looked like. So with Rome and now Alesia. So I'll just describe what I was figuring out. I described this yesterday, but Julius Caesar, he's I think, according to Wikipedia, had 10 or 11 legions at the Battle of Alesia. I didn't find that place in the book yet where he said it, but I don't know if they were just guessed at based on what he said, what they were able to do or whatever. But so he said that he put 23 redoubts. I don't even know that word. Redoubt. Redoubt means fort. And so I was like, okay, well, how big's a fort? And he said that at one point, he only mentioned the word 5 times in the whole book. But and one of the 5th time he mentioned it, he said he called 4 cohorts from a redoubt. And so I'm like, I'll just assume that's how many cohorts you can put in a redoubt. Because 4 is how many you would guess, because a redoubt is a square thing. You would put it in squares. So cohort, 4 cohorts. I saw on the Wikipedia article for Legion, you see over there on the right a graphic that somebody made of a square fort and a path going in, entrances in the middle of the walls, and so then 4 paths going in from there, and then in the center bottom is they made a square where the officers' quarters are, and I didn't know where they got that from, so I was like, okay, cool. And so then I also saw a fort in Masada, and the Masada, I measured it, the one that you can see the most visible. There's 3 of them, and I assumed that all 3 of those occupied a legion. They just broke them up into 3 different forts because the ground was not flat. But the main one the one that you see on the Wikipedia page for Legion, I measured at 70 by 65 meters. Now that's about how big a modern day, like an 1800s Cowboys and Indians fort was. I could have sworn I actually drew in a fort here in Boulder. I could have freaking sworn it. But maybe I'll have to look on my other computer. Maybe it's on the other computer. I'll do that actually right now. But I keep thinking that I keep everything doubled up and backed up, but could have sworn I did that. But anyway, and it's actually also the same size as the ruins on Bibracte. You have this stone ruin on Bibracte, same size pretty much as Masada Fort. And they even have, it's like a museum. They even have some like reconstructions of Gallic houses. They're just these little like tiny houses, 7 meters by 7 meters, or maybe like 7 meters by 5 meters or something. So about the size of the huts that I made in the Wild West up here, and actually the same size as the one remaining log cabin up at Caribou. So isn't that interesting? So that's when I was like, okay, so that's how big the readout is. Let's see if you can make it work. So that's when I did the math. I read on some page that when they would make a camp, they would make a ditch on the outer wall of it, like 9 or 17 feet, Roman feet, which is 16.64 English feet wide. So I made one 17 Roman feet wide around my first fort. I'll call it a fort. I don't know when this was translated. I think it was translated the Gallic War in like 1914. So they're using a little bit of antiquated wording, but and then I decided to make the battlement on the top 2 meters wide. So it's 70 by 70 at the wall, and then there's another 15.6 feet wide ditch, and then 2 meter wide battlement wall, top walking wall around it, and then I measured at that point. I measured the path at that point from the drawing that I got off Wikipedia was like 2.64 meters. So that makes sense, almost 3 meters. I made the walkway at Caribou, the wooden walkway, 3 meters. The width of the Aurelian wall is 3 meters. That's how wide I made the battlements and the towers at the wall they made at Battle of Alesia, and also the Alesia Museum. Their little mock towers are 3 meters. So that makes sense. So in order to have fit a cohort into one of those corners of the fort, you need to make a grid 7 by 7 tents, because 7 times 7 is 49, 49 times 10 is 490, and you need 480 guys for a cohort. So you can do them all across, and then you would have one extra, I guess, to make up for whatever the quarters of the officer gobble up. And then there was actually even extra room for latrines and mess hall. So then I proceeded, so I drew in some of the tents, and I found from a website, and I don't even know where these guys got their information, because I read the 4.2 page long chapter in Renatus, or Vegetius Renatus's book that's on my website, which is the book about Roman armies, and it was written in like the 350s, about camps, and I can't remember, but I read all through there and got as much information as I could, and Yeah, he said like sometimes they make them triangle, so I want to make one triangle. Sometimes they make them circle. I'll make one circle, just depending on the land. But that they try to stay in fortified towns. One interesting thing was when I drew in like weeks ago when I started this whole Julius Caesar book. He said that they went from Oculum, which is at the base of the Alps, over the Alps into Viniculum or Sinusium, the next town over in France on the other side of the Alps. They averaged hiking over the Alps. They averaged 27.4 kilometers a day. But when I did that 27.4 kilometers, magically, right at the end was an old village or a fort. At one point, a fort. So I was like, oh wow, those must be the villages that existed then that the army stayed in. And if I wanted to recreate it, I would just, like if you wanted a bike tour and stay in a town, it would work the same. So that's pretty cool. Or bike tour or hike tour. But so then I proceeded to try to figure out, because I read somewhere, I don't remember where, that each tent was 10 guys. And I can't remember what they called that. They called it like a squad or something. So you would have 10 tents per century, 100 guys a century. Or was that 80? Anyway, 10 guys, but maybe it's 8 tents per century, because I think a century was 8 guys, even though cent comes from 100. So yeah, 10 tents per century, but 10 guys per tent. But the tent was 296 centimeters by 296 centimeters by 154 centimeters high. And I looked at what the tents looked like, and they didn't have a pole in the middle to hold it up. It was held up by poles on the ends, the middle of the end, meaning you could string a hammock in there, but on those two poles. So I read that each tent has 10 guys, but 2 guys stand watch at any given point. So I'm imagining one guy on the left side of the door, one guy on the right side of the door, kind of keeping each other awake. And so that means only 8 guys have to fit inside the tent when they're sleeping. I did all this after I did my video yesterday. And so I looked up how tall the average Roman soldier was, which was 5'7", which is 170 centimeters. So I made, oval that was 170 centimeters long, and I made it just as wide as a sleeping bag. I went on my Envato Elements, downloaded an image of a sleeping bag, and made the ovals as wide as a sleeping bag, and 5'7". So I was able to put 4 across the tent, but they were more than halfway the length. But I was able to stick 3 guys in between the gaps so that the head overlaps with the foot, but they still get shoulder room. And the 4 guys across get a little bit of wiggle room. But then there wasn't room for that 8th guy. But then I went, oh, well, what about the hammock? So I think the 8th guy slept on a hammock above the other guys. So there's like a pecking order to the sleeping arrangements. The guys who are the worst, the back of the line of the group of 10 guys, whatever that's called, squad or whatever, those guys had to stand watch. And then the 4 guys up at the end of the tent, those were the next 4 guys at the back of the line. And then the 3 guys toward the front of the tent who went across were one up, and then the guy who was like the boss got to hang out up in the tent. Up on the hammock. So I guess that's how they did it. So I did one tent, trial run of one tent. I used the images to illustrate the guys. And then I traced another guy, the one in the middle, and elevated him a meter up. Made little circles for the guys sitting, made it a meter up. Made the tent 2 meters high, because you can only do it in increments of a meter. And then made it 50% opaque, and that's my tent. So I think for my for one fort, I'm going to draw in all the guys, which is like 1,250. Whatever 480 times 4 is, it's like 1,200 and something. 1,280 guys who you can fit in a fort that's 70 meters by 65 meters. So there you go. It lined up. I made it the same size as the Masada, exact same size, which you can see. And I made it exactly fit 4 cohorts, which is exactly how many cohorts Caesar said was in a fort. And I magically fit the guys that you need inside of the tents. So, success. So anyways, before I did this video, I drew the 17-foot wide ditch, the 2-meter wide, I drew a line for the outer wall of the 2-meter wide wall, and then I started the inner wall. And that's when I decided to do my video. So I'm going to finish the inner wall. I just made these lines, and then I traced along them. And then I'm going to put the platform on top of it. Draw it at that end. Only not like hold down and draw, because I like to hold down and draw for the wall, because when you make it line and fill, you can see the lines come up, which makes it look like beams of wood going up. But I don't have to do that for the top, so it can be quicker. You just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you go put it together. 9. So so that's what I'm gonna do. Finish the inner wall, the platform, and then I'm gonna copy. I made the tents have 1 meter between the tents, which isn't much, but it's enough. And then just copy what all those look like, and then paste them on the side, and then draw it all in. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I never finished drawing in the spikes, which is like probably like the most tedious freaking thing I've ever done. Like the thing that scratches your head. Like, am I crazy for doing this? But the thing is, when you get close, you can see it with detail, and it makes it clear what it looked like. So it makes it worth it, even though it's like 5 hours of work or whatever it is. I'm excited I managed to do that. And after I do the first fort, I then have to draw all the other 23 forts. And so I don't know how they came up with the idea that he had 10 or 11 legions, which I guess they said 80,000 men. 10 or 11 legions plus auxiliaries, because 11 legions is like 52,500 men. So, but if you multiply each readout by 4 cohorts, and then those readouts with the 4 cohorts by 23, you're looking at like 44,500 dudes, which gives you like 8,000 more to make the legion. So after I make these forts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an intact legionary camp in the middle of the plains that Caesar occupied. And that's going to be another project that's interesting, because I don't think there's any actual like detailed map of what a legion looked like on the field, and I've never made one. So I get to put on my thinking cap and make a legion that's complete with all the people you need in it, and Caesar's quarters, and past like stables for the horses and all that. So and then calculate it all and see if it matches, and then go and read the book and make sure see if he mentioned how many legions he brought there. In fact, I should do that now. I'm super interested. I have the entire book on one page on my website, so all I have to do is, if I'm looking for a word, all I have to do is hit Control. That's the advantage of having the whole book on one page. All I have to do is hit Control F and then type the word. So I think I'm going to go and hit Control F and type Legion, and just click through click through or drag down until we get to that chapter 7, book 7, and see if anytime he mentions legions, like how many legions he had or how many he brought to the battle, and then try to match it all up. I love it when it all matches. Like I've been having really good luck. I've been having really good luck making stuff match. Archaeology confirming what they say in the book and everything. So, and confirming what other people write from wherever they get their information. So, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm gonna go and do some brain candy work right now with that camp, and then 4:30 go over to my mom's house, and we'll go on a bike ride. It's nice out, like all of these trees are out. They haven't started to turn color, but I really like October because you don't have to worry about it being too hot out here. It's perfect temperature, and I can you know, you can go on bike rides and not have to worry about getting sweaty and stuff. So okay, so there's my vlog. Tomorrow hopefully I'll be done with this legion, with this redoubt, the fort, and maybe finish drawing the other forts. When I draw the other forts, I'm only going to draw the moat, and the way that I draw it is I just do a screen capture with all the different lines that I make in the grid, and then so then I can paste it, and then it's like a coloring board, coloring book. You just trace it all in, and so I'm gonna draw in the ditch, the battlement wall, you know, with the polygon battlement floor with the line tool for the breastwork, and then the tents. I'm gonna draw in the tents. Which is a lot of work, but I won't draw in, you know, the soldiers in the tents, only for the first one. And yeah, and then for all 23. And then maybe tomorrow I can get going on that Legion, so that'll be interesting. And then if I ever feel like I have extra like energy to do the tedious thing, I can get back with that spikes. And then I have to make the outer wall the same way, because I think they made two, because I was the one facing on the end, but the one facing on the out, I'm not going to make the spikes, only on the one on the end, just on one of them. So anyways, that's what I'm up to. Talk to you tomorrow.